Good morning, everybody. I cannot start a single presentation on terrorism, on counter-terrorism, without paying tribute to the victims. And paying tribute to the victims means victims of all over the world, but it means also a duty. The duty to think out of the box in order to reduce the threat of terrorism, in order not to have new victims of terrorism. But what we could do at the global level to really offer a good, let's say, platform of international cooperation to counter terrorism. I will propose today 3 types of innovations. One of them have been already very well touched by David Sharia and Adam on technology. The other one is, of course, diplomacy, with what we heard from the representative here of the peace process, and what also my 2 friends said, including Jehangir Khan, about what the international cooperation could do. But let's think about something new. First of all, good research. Second, new type of diplomacy. Third, coalition from international organizations and universities. That's the 3 points I want to touch with you today. The first point is good research. Do you know, for example, that insurgency is largely funded by natural resources in Africa? 38% of the resources of terrorist organizations in Africa come from natural resources. Diamonds, whatever you want, you know. So it has to be tackled, this one. We very often neglect that. Means that a good governance and good sustainable development has to take into consideration this transnational organized crime element. Because when we speak about the elements of good governance, we neglect too much to fight transnational organized crime. And to think out of the box that terrorism is funded. ISIS, for example, was really funded by the sale of antiquities, by far, let's say, and also drug trafficking. So that's, and now cyber. So that's the first point, good research. The second point is new diplomacy. New diplomacy means, sorry about that, guys, and good friends here. I think that we have invented, and Majali is here to say that he used to be the vice president of the Knesset, and we work together in the Parliamentary Assembly of Mediterranean. Means that the diplomacy is not only for, let's say, the executive power at the international level, but also at the legislative power. And they do so well, you know, for example, for the dialogue with PLO and in the framework of this international organization. But I can see also many other cases in which this type of diplomacy among the legislators is so efficient because it is underground and it offers new capacities of dialogue that are not offered by the executive power. And I have to pay tribute to this organization of which I am ambassador now because of that. And the third, and I think that really we have to really push this. I also invite our colleague here, responsible for the peace process, to discuss with Majali about what we do on that. The third point is university. Well, very often university, you take university as a place in which you discuss, you can say freely whatever has to be said, etc. Should be also a place in which you can innovate. And innovate on what? I take one example here. We all abandoned the idea of having a definition of terrorism at the international level. No. Of course, member states cannot have that. But if technically we want to do that, we have to have a research based on the good research already made by the former president of the International Tribunal on the Lebanon, Antonio Cassese, the famous professor, who has started to say, by the way, we have a customary law offense of terrorism, at the broad sense of that. But we need more work from the universities. And I invite the institute here. Jonathan Davis can convey that to Boaz, but I can perhaps say that later to him. In addition to that, since I am a PAM representative, I am very glad, Jonathan, to offer you a 6 months internship in PAM for one of your students, free of charge, you know, and it will be based in San Remo. And we will offer probably the same to a PLO intern, whatever. But still, this offer is made and official to the ICT. 6 months of internship in San Remo to see what kind of diplomatic work can be done in the framework of the parliamentarian diplomacy. So this is why I want to offer you, because I feel that having been a high official of the UN, I have a duty to continue to, let's say, see the ways, trends, avenues through which we can really make a serious progress. And using this audience here and the researcher here in order to get, you know, the things done rightly. We heard the general who is the commander of the intelligence service in the IDF. He said himself that this comprehensive approach has to be done, has to be there in order to counter your neighbors' terrorist organizations that you have that surround Israel. I can understand that. I am French by nationality, so I know what terrorism means. Perhaps 20 years ago we were still outside of the loop. Now we are at the center of the loop. So, and I know very well here the good relation that you have with my dear friend, the Ambassador Danon. So I can say that we have really to unite the forces. In my capacity also of professor in the military academy, I am ready to help. I am ready to help you for this research about a real customary law definition of terrorism. Who, at the end of the day, if the General Assembly, if the diplomats, if the states cannot do that, the universities have to do that. And we can do it, because despite the fact that we have 19 sectorial instruments which define perfectly what terrorism is, perfectly, I said. I am a lawyer, as you said, and I was just in my Supreme Court. I don't need that general comprehensive definition for the practical cooperation. I need it at the diplomatic level, at the political level. I need it. We need it. All of you, you need it. Despite the fact that we continue to have good international cooperation, we need it. So let's do it at the university level, a kind of congregation of universities from which we can bring that on the table of the diplomats, which will be forced to discuss, excuse me, but it is the way through which it has to be. So with that, I will close my presentation by, quoting a famous French author, Albert Camus, which is known because he is also from the Mediterranean area. He was born in Algeria. He said something that you have to keep in mind. And he was saying that at the when he received the Nobel Prize of Literature, not so far from your place, my dear. He said, our world tomorrow, it was in 1956, our world tomorrow will be what we would like it be, but our common will should be the strongest one, lasting for the longest time possible. On that, I engage yourself to continue very strongly, as we have here an example with Boaz, and I want to thank him to have invited me here, his team, Jonathan, the other researchers. So let's be the strongest that we can be in order to counter terrorism. Thank you.